Hey friends, welcome to Kevin Teaches Music. In today's lesson, I'm going to be showing you some accompaniment techniques for the key of E minor. In particular, the example tune we're looking at this week is the Drunken Landlady. I recently published a video, a little performance video with a set of 3 reels, and the first one in the set was the Drunken Landlady, and I did some accompaniment on the octave mandolin, and I thought that some of you might like to take a look at what I did in that video and the strategies behind that. So, the octave mandolin I'm using today is GDAD. It's tuned GDAD. Now, if you play GDAE, you should be able to take everything I'm talking about in this lesson and still use it. It still will apply. You'll just have to shift your fret over for that treble string. So let's talk about the tune, because of course the most important thing to any accompaniment pattern is the melody of the tune. You really, really have to know the melody of the tune. I encourage anyone playing accompaniment to actually fully know the melody of every tune they're accompanying and be able to sing it and hopefully play it. Now, I know in reality that may not be possible for every single tune. But, so take a listen to this tune. It's in E minor. It starts on the B. B section. Repeat. So it's a really, really nice little tune, and it's very Irish, and has a very sort of the classic E minor Irish reel sound to it. And by the way, one thing that is part of that classic sound is the use in E minor of the note C sharp, especially in scalar runs and as an approach tone to the note D. And that's because most of the time when we're dealing with E minor in an Irish music setting, in traditional tunes, it's really not so much natural minor as it is Dorian minor, with exceptions. Occasionally, you do have a true natural minor, but typically we're dealing with a C sharp in our scale. Let me get this in tune. There we go. We're typically dealing with a C sharp in our E minor scale. The reason why that pops up is because E minor is often the alternate chord in an E minor tune in these Irish settings is going to be D. You often have E minor going to D, back to E minor. That's down a whole step. Now, the reason why the C sharp comes up is because that's the leading tone of the D. So you'll have this sound: E minor, C sharp leading, D as your sort of alternate chord. And that is actually at the core of this tune, not only melodically, but also harmonically. So listen to the melody, for example. You have this little twiddle twaddle thing at the beginning in E minor. Now that obviously lands on a D, and that's a D chord, right? So that right away confirms our suspicion that we're going from E minor to D and back and forth. Back to the little twiddle twaddle back and forth thing on E minor. But listen to this part. So did you hear those notes? Hear that half step? And I can bring it out on the octave mandolin or the bouzouki because I have a C sharp, and then if I'm using GDAD, then I have an open D right there. So, sorry. You kind of can let them ring out against each other. And that is exactly the leading tone melody that I was talking about a second ago. It's A, B, C sharp, D, C sharp, D again. So it outlines that leading tone twice in the one measure there. Let's get this in tune here. There we go. So take a listen to that again. D, E minor. That's almost like an A chord with a C sharp going to D. Now, let's start talking about the chords that we use. So obviously, as you guessed, our first chord is going to be E minor, and then we're going to go to D, and then we're going to go to E minor. Now, what about that C sharp? Well, you might have heard me just mention that the A chord is going to have the C sharp. So an A major chord is A, C sharp, E, and that is the 5 of D, right? So in the key of D, the 5th note is A, build a chord on that note, and that is your 5 chord in that key. So it's going to have a lovely sense of resolution if you go from A to D, right? So, sorry. There's another way to voice it. So the two primary ways that I play that chord, sometimes play an open A over here without the C sharp. I go, 2-2-0-2 on GDAD. If you're doing GDAE, you just simply won't use that ring finger there. That has a lovely ring to it, and it's pretty easy to get to from your basic E shape. So your E shape, your E minor, is going to be something along the lines of don't play the G string, and then you're going to be going 2-2-2. That'll give you a nice open E chord. In a pinch, you could go 2-2-0, because that 7th actually works kind of well for certain tunes. Because in our tune, for example, we have that 7th in the melody, so that actually sounds cool for the accompaniment. So anyway, sorry, our E minor 2. Let's go for this tune. Let's go with 2-2-0. So nothing or X, and then 2 and 0, and then our A is going to be 2-2-0-2. Now we do want to learn this other A over here. This is an A in first inversion, so I slide my index finger over to the F sharp, or sorry, the C sharp, which is the 6th fret, right? It's a tritone up from the open G. There's the open G. There's the tritone, the C sharp. And then I need a 6th to go up from C sharp to A, so that's why I have this diagonal here instead of... This is a 5th, right, when you do the power chord. To get a 6th, if the bottom note is the 3rd of the chord, then I need a 6th to reach my tonic. And then I stay on the same fret to get the 5th. So this is the C sharp in the bass. This is the A, or the tonic. I shouldn't be saying tonic. I should be saying root of the chord. Sorry. It's not the tonic of the song. It's the root of this chord. So third of the chord, root of the chord, fifth of the chord. C sharp, A, and E. Now, if you wanted to be really thorough, you could get all 4 fingers and fret the final string down here as well. But I typically don't have time to do that, so I just hit these 3, and then I just hope that the lowest, or sorry, the open D, the treble string here, just doesn't really ring. And even if it does, it's not the end of the world in a quick setting. Kind of sounds kind of neat if it's going by quickly. Right? But ideally, there it is. That's the chord we just learned, right? So those are 2 really neat ways to incorporate that A chord into your E minor accompaniment. So let's go back to the tune and figure out exactly how this fits in. So we have Drunken Landlady is really neat because on the downbeat of measure, let's see, on the downbeat of measure 3, where we typically would hear the D note being played in the melody. For example, there's an almost identical tune called Pigeon on the Gate, and that one goes that's a little bit more standard, where you hear that D on the downbeat of measure 3. And what that does is that actually locks in the accompaniment in Pigeon on the Gate, which is not what we're doing right now. But if you were doing Pigeon on the Gate, you would have to play a D chord on bar 3. You would have to go But Drunken Landlady is a little more interesting, as Drunken Landladies tend to be, in that it actually it fakes you out. It makes you think you're going to land on the D, but then it has one more turn on the A, and then it lands on the D in the second half of the measure. So it goes. Isn't that neat? It just lingers on that upper note for one extra half of a measure. And what that does is it gives us space to fit our famous A chord in. And what do you know? The downbeat of that measure is in fact an A. So over this figure, A, B, A, F sharp, D, we're going to go A, D, yappy yum bum bum, yappy yum bum bum, or yappy yum bum bum. So kind of a cool sound, right? It throws off the usual cadence by just half a measure, and it creates a little bit of interest there. Now, like I said, there's 2 ways to voice that. There's this one and there's this one. I wanted to show you also a little melody line, a little counterpoint line that I use there. It takes we're trying to play the A chord for half of a measure, so we have 4 eighth notes worth, or 2 quarter note beats. So we have 4 eighth notes of space to do one of these melodic lines. The best way to connect A to D with 4 eighth notes is to go A, B, C, E, D. So it's a scale, but then it shoots over the D and then lands on it. Now it requires a bit of a stretch there on the fingers, so make sure that your instrument is angled at a nice angle, and that you might want to practice this. You might want to practice it a couple of times to make sure you get the spacing and everything right. And now, if that spacing doesn't work for you, I mean, ideally it should. You know, if you can't reach it all at once, you can actually just work on shifting the hand almost as a cellist might. But if you really don't like that, you can also do it up here. And then you could perhaps finish that line, because you're going to need to make your way back down to the lower notes. So if you were to do it on those higher strings, A, B, C sharp, E, D, and then finishing B, A, G, F sharp, that's going to have a nice sound. So yeah, it's going to be... Did you hear that? And that's a true counterpoint. That's a true contrapuntal line. Right? So now we're getting into the territory of creating contrapuntal accompaniment. But anyway, I wanted to show you that one line in the bass there that I used. So in context, that one is... Did So I threw it in about 3 times there in that passage. So this general chord structure is actually going to continue for the entire tune. So what you might do is you might try to come up with 3 or 4 moves or licks or chord voicings or something, and you might try to follow the phrasing of the tune. So for example, you might do one riff for one ending and then the other one for the other ending, and then go back and forth, sort of creating a sense of A, B, almost like a breathing, you know, an in and out kind of feeling. So first one, keep it simple. The second one, let's do that. The little bass line. Third one is the same as the first one. Simple. Now the fourth one, let's go high. Right? So we had phrase A, phrase B, back to phrase A, and then phrase C in terms of the different figures we use. A is the simple one. B is going to be the bass line. Now back to A. Simple chords. Now we're going to go up. All right. So that's a nice sense of phrasing. Now you may have noticed there's one more chord in there that I have not mentioned. I've neglected to mention what that was. That is going to be the B minor, and that is, of course, the perfect companion to D. So in this system, our tonic is E minor, that's our home. Our primary away from home chord is D. That's our primary alternate in terms of E minor, D, E minor, D. That's the main thing you're going back and forth. That's sort of the other pole of this circuit, if you will. And then the A serves as a transition from E to D. And then the B minor is kind of like the cousin of the D that has a little bit more of a sense of propulsion back towards E. So the D major can sort of sound like a place of rest. So take a listen, especially after the A. So remember, the A makes the D sound like the tonic because of the C sharp. So take a listen. It kind of feels like do, doesn't it? So when we've landed on the D and we want to create a sense of momentum back to E, we use the B minor, which is the relative minor of D major, and it has two of the three notes in the chord are the same, D and F sharp. It just has a B instead of an A. And that is itself the 5 of E. Now, it's not a major 5, so it's not a dominant chord, but it does have a certain sense of propulsion towards E because it has the D that likes to resolve like that. Right? So we have this little family of 4 chords. E minor, A goes to D, and then B minor carries you back to E. It's this really neat little cycle. A, B, B minor, A, B, B minor, E, A, D, B minor, E, A, D, B minor. Right? That's going to have a super duper cool sound, if you ask me. Then the only other thing about that A section is you do hear me following the melody a little bit there, because our melody goes B, E, 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 B, E, D, E, B, so it has that prominent D, and I like to, all I'm doing is just removing my fingers, so I'm going from the open E to the open D on that exact note. So that just follows the melody in a nice way. So it just interrupts the E minor. Otherwise, it's just a bit. It's a bit monotonous. So. Sorry. E minor. Okay, so that is how you navigate the A section. Now the B section is incredibly similar. We're going to use the same family of chords, if you will. We may adopt a chord from another family. We'll see how we feel. But the melody goes. So it has the exact same figure with that. You think it's going to land on D in measure 3, but it goes the same figure from the A part. And it has a very similar sound with that. Yeah, which is, sorry, I was having a weird moment there, but that's exactly the same ending from the A part. I was just making sure that it is exactly the same, and it is. So this part, now this does have a prominent F sharp there in the top, so you have B, E, E, D, E, D, E, F sharp, before it does its little thing on the A. So let me see what I would do. Let me show you a contrapuntal line that I like to use here. The first thing I do on the melody that goes, I punctuate those E's by actually doing hammer, open and close, like so. You can do it on all 3 if you want, or you can really pick either the treble B and E or the ones in the middle, or all 3. So that has a cool sound to it, right? You could mirror the melody there. But what I like to do is I come from the F sharp, and I come all the way down to D. That's F sharp, E, D, B, A, F sharp, E, F sharp, D. It's just the D. It's just the D major pentatonic scale. Nothing fancy. Where the melody is going. Sorry. So is what you play. The melody goes. And then if we were to continue in that line of logic, the melody then goes. So we could go right? Still playing around in that D major pentatonic scale. We could crisscross where the melody goes down, we go up. So D, E, F, A, D. And then for the end of that section, we could just go back to our standard D and B minor. So that's measures 1 through 4 with that contrapuntal stuff. And then for 5 through 8, the melody ends up, it hits that C sharp much more prominently in 5 through 8. So in 5 through 8, we're going to want to return to our A chord, the A, D, B minor cadence there. But we can still start off with the same contrapuntal line. So for example, I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you'll hear the difference between the two phrases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You hear how I worked in that A? And I could either do the open chords or the line, but that has to come in measure 7. So once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what did I do? I went. So I did my line, but instead of going final F sharp to D, I have to kill a note or two because I need to get down to A. So it now becomes da na 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 na. And that's a beautiful line to go along with that melody. So now, if you're really ambitious, what you could try to do, the melody. So we just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now it obviously repeats. When you do the repeat, if you're really ambitious, you could try to reach up for this A up here. That's going to give you a really nice sound. When the melody player is doing the F sharp, you're going to be on the A. So it's going to have these nice thirds coming down. So or right? It's tough to sing the melody and play the other part at the same time. So that's just a scale. Of course, skipping the C sharp, so B, A, G, F sharp. And then you could finish off that phrase the same way we've been doing all the other ones. So you could practice. Or you could even go. So that, what I did there is I did my descending line, And then I went back to the A in the middle to do the line we talked about in the first section, where we were talking about having a higher pitched contrapuntal variant. Instead of that, we had, right? We could append that right at the end of this scale. So altogether, that would be... Right? So that could work as well. So for the B section, so we've talked about a number of different ideas. Let's settle on a nice phrasing that we like. I'm gonna actually suggest the same exact type of phrasing from the A section, which in fact in both cases actually follows the melody. So what I'm gonna suggest is thing 1, thing 2, thing 1, thing 3. That's a really nice phrasing, or ABAC if you will. So in the A part of the tune, we did that. We had the simple chords was our first thing, and then the line was our second thing. Then we returned to the first thing, and then we had the higher line was our third thing, or our other thing. So here, let's do this. Our thing 1 will be the contrapuntal line coming down from F sharp. And then our thing 2 will be the contrapuntal line that goes down into the bass line. Then we'll go back to thing 1. And then thing 3, or our alternate ending, will be the high A into the A line that is right there. So it'll go down to F sharp and then back to A. Let's see. And then we'll throw a B minor right on the end there. All right, so I'm going to attempt to sing the melody nice and slow and play the accompaniment. It might be a little imprecise, but hopefully you'll hear the way the two lines interact. It's kind of tough to do, but we'll see how I do. Let's see if that actually works in up to speed. Yeah, I like it. I like it up to speed. Now, I'll give you one more trick of the trade before we call it a day. This is going to be what I'd like to think of as an adopted chord. So my strategy, like I said at the beginning of the video, is Dorian minor. So for this tune, it's E minor with C sharps. That means that C natural is not really part of the family, as it were. The C natural is going to be adopted. So we can bring the C natural into the fold in limited circumstances, or in limited cases, judiciously. We have to make sure that we're using it in a way that sounds good both vertically and horizontally. So, of course, the primary chord that we're talking about here is the C major chord, C, E, G, which shares two notes with the E minor chord, E, G, B. So the C chord is primarily going to function in the key of E minor as a substitute for E minor. Okay, so it really does not have the same function as the C sharp does. The C sharp leads very strongly into D. The C doesn't lead very well into D. I mean, it can, but really I'd say it actually tends more strongly down towards the B. Well, you could go either way. But it essentially functions as a replacement for the E minor, if anything. So how would we put that in? Typically, we're going to put that in the fourth phrase of a section. So what you do is you build up the audience or the listener's expectations by playing a whole bunch of E minor. Third phrase. Now watch this. On my fourth phrase, on the downbeat of my fourth phrase, where I would have had E minor, I place a C. Now, the way that sounds is kind of has a very deep, mellow, kind of very modern sound. You know, it's not really a classical or Baroque or any of that type of sound. It's not a very trad sound either. It does function in traditional music today, but it's not something that you would have heard in earlier traditional Irish recordings. So, but in today's world, it is a very fashionable chord, you know. And what happens is when the melody has a B, you've got if you're playing the C chord, you've got C, E, G, and then if your melody's a B, you're creating a major seventh sound, right? And that's a very mellow, kind of epic, it's almost heavy metal sort of sound, you know. But anyway, that's one spot where you can put that chord in. Third phrase. Here we go. So a good way to come out of it is actually give it 3 beats and then give yourself an A on the 4th beat, and that propels you back to the D, and then you have your D B minor cadence at the end. So you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So and so on and so forth. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed this accompaniment lesson on the octave mandolin. Mostly today what we talked about was dealing with E minor in an Irish traditional music setting and what that means. And what we've discovered is that Dorian minor is going to be incredibly useful for you. And we've sort of classified 5 chords in this key. The E minor is our home. The D is our sort of primary alternate chord, or our other focus or pole. The A serves as a transition or bridge into the D. And then the B minor is a cousin of the D, which propels us back to E minor. And then our adopted chord, our 5th chord, sort of the odd man out, is the C major chord, which needs to be used very judiciously, primarily where you would have had an E minor. It can be used as a substitute to create some tension. All right, that's it for today. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my Patreon channel, where I have many videos of every type and description covering a variety of topics in not only Irish traditional music, but also music theory and ear training and much more. So happy practicing. Let me know what you thought about this tune in this video in the comments. See you next time.